Okay, hello everyone.
Hello.
Hi, hi.
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 Hello, hi. Okay. Well, what's this about? So it's not about anything really. This is wholeness. So all you could say that this points to doesn't really point to anything because nothing is exclusive in that sense, but what you could say is suggested is that this is everything. So this is all there is. And this being sitting, reading, listening, talking, chatting on Zoom. This is everything. And it's whole and complete. It's perfect, if you like, exactly as it is. Nothing has to change. Nothing has to be recognized or realized. There doesn't need to be an awakening. There doesn't need to be further insight or inquiry. This is whole and complete, just as it is. But what appears to apparently happen, as part of this is this separate experience that I am alive and I'm an individual and this is my life and I'm a separate person, I have choice, I have autonomy, and that one day in the future I will die. And what this is suggesting then is that there's nothing wrong with that, but that is an illusion. There just is no separate individual. All there is, if you like, is wholeness, which is everything. So what happens next? Well, we can sit in silence or we can open up a conversation. Anyone can ask anything, say anything they want to. There really is no right or wrong. Everyone's welcome to speak. So yeah, let's just see what happens.
Hi, Izzy.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for letting me on. I just wondered if I could ask, why is it that so many of us don't see this straight away, and that we kind of, the sense that sort of contracted energy, as some people call it, is so strong that we definitely, even if we might intellectually understand that that the me isn't real, we identify with it so strongly.
I mean, there isn't a why in that sense. So there is no answer to why this apparent illusion appears. There's not a why for anything really. So, I mean, there is nothing to see. So it's not, this is not sort of suggesting that I've seen something and you haven't in that sense. That is part of the apparent illusion, is that I must see something, or that Izzy has seen something or recognized something that I must then see in order to get to where she is. But so in a sense, that is the setup of the illusion, is that there has to be something else recognized, but there really doesn't. This is it. Sitting on Zoom chatting is everything.
I always knew there's a point to Zoom. You've explained it. Is okay. There's nothing more I can say to that, really. Is there? okay, this is probably a silly question, but is there, okay, I mean, you said that there's nothing to be seen, so maybe what I was going to say is there any fear of like, not fear, but is it possible that you could slide back into that sense of contracted energy or mehood or selfhood, or that, and that this realization is the wrong word, but this, for the want of a better word, that this realization might sort of disappear just as quickly as it came? Did it come quickly for you, or did it, or what? Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just wondering, can it slide back?
So it's not there in the first place, which is the surprise, you could say, because when it feels as if it's there and it feels as if I'm a me and there is a real illusion, it really feels as if it's real and it's there, and then it collapses and it won't be there. But the surprise, you could say, when it apparently collapses, which doesn't actually happen, is that it was never there in the first place. Hence the sort of words illusion and dream. So in terms of could it come back? Well, there's nothing to come back because it is never there. So in the first place, that would be assuming that there is a contraction, that there is an illusion, that there is a me, which there just isn't. So, I mean, the contraction is, albeit it appears to be an embodied illusion, you could say, in the sense of it's not just this thought I am, it's this centered feeling of being in the body and that this is my body. So yeah, that just completely collapses and is revealed that it never happens. And yeah, I mean, it seems like a process, you could say, sort of on this apparent path. There can be all these glimpses, awakenings, insights, but in the end, they're all irrelevant. And yeah, I mean, there is no word for the apparent collapse because it doesn't happen, but I see what you're getting at in that sense. So I would say it's instant, but it can't be instant because that would imply that there's time and stuff like that. So sudden, I guess you could say, the sudden explosion into boundlessness, which has always been the case.
Is it possible that people, even me, have experienced it without realizing that there might be moments in our lives that, where we're not thinking and we're not constantly reinforcing this selfhood or this sense of self? And, is that possible?
Well, absolutely. It's like this is it. So there's no, it's not that the me is the permanent state and this is a glimpse into another reality. No, this is it. This is everything. So actually the me, the apparent me, is this additional layer that never actually happens. It's this additional software that it just doesn't exist at all. So in that sense, is it there all the time and we haven't realized it? Well, it's everything. So I mean, I can't really answer yes to that because there's no one to realize that, but in the sense of it's already this, yes, yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if it's that, that piece of software that is the me can't possibly realize that, and that's why it doesn't.
Oh, so it doesn't exist. So yeah. Something that doesn't exist can't realize anything. Absolutely. Totally impossible. Just a complete closed loop of its own little world, which it believes to be real. That's fine, of course. That's just what's appearing to happen. Apparently.
Does this software, this mehood, this selfhood that may not exist, but that so many of us think exists, does this, I mean, does it not help us survive from data, through, is it an evolutionary advantage? Does it help us survive daily life and work and all that kind of nonsense?
Well, the person would probably think so. But no, it's and that is in a sense, I mean, I don't want to use the word arrogance, but that is the the idea of self-importance is that things won't work without me. How could things possibly function if I'm not around? You know, I am the center of this and I make things happen. So the person can't imagine anything without itself. Literally impossible, because it can't see beyond itself in that sense. Of course, there is no beyond, but yeah, totally. I mean, there's just what's appearing to happen, and it works in that, for want of a better word, perfectly, naturally, just by itself, and it doesn't need the person would think it needs itself to work. So yeah. And no, there's absolutely no reason for this apparent person. It's not an evolutionary advantage, or, I mean, you could make all that sort of stuff up as a story, sure, but there's no answer at the end of the day.
Oh, I just wondered if that's why we became the most so-called successful species on the planet and are now busily wiping out every other species. You know, I wonder. So it's gone wrong. If it's an evolutionary advantage, it's definitely gone wrong in some way. But I mean, you know, is that why we became so much more powerful in the material sense than every other species on the planet, because of this so-called self that makes us feel powerful and makes us think we're better than everything else?
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, there is no answer to that, and there's nothing wrong with anything. So there's nothing wrong with humans seeming to feel more important than animals or whatever. There's just nothing wrong. It's just how it appears to be playing out. And there's no knowing of that. So what is doesn't know itself, it doesn't experience itself. So there's no hierarchy in the sense of humans are destroying the planet and shouldn't be doing that, or, I mean, that just, it's not actually happening. So there's no one who experiences that. So it's just perfect as it is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This dog walk is mesmerizing.
I figured if anyone gets bored, they can just watch me.
Okay, hello, Izzy.
Hi, hello.
So, since no one else is speaking, and I am curious about your story, and of course, not everybody wants to speak about the story, but would you tell us a little bit about your story, and if you have listened to other speakers, and if you had an interest in this, and when did it start? Because you're also so amazingly young, I saw on Facebook. So yeah, will you speak about this a little?
Yeah, I only survived 22 years, I'm afraid. Yeah, of course. So, I mean, there's not really anything special or different about it in that sense. I've kind of said before, like, seeking is seeking. So I guess you could say from a very young age, there was a sense of, I mean, it's totally indescribable, but from a very young age, there was a sense of life being a game. That would be the only way I could sort of describe it, and that there was something bigger or something. Yeah, I could never articulate it when I was younger either. But looking back, that could have been described as sort of a glimpse, I would say, not maybe to a large degree at that time, but I obviously, this was sort of when I was 6 or 7, so I wouldn't say there was any understanding of anything and no interest either. And yeah, then I guess just the whole setup of the person plays out. So seeking different things, relationships, money, jobs. Yeah, just normal, really normal person things. And
so no spiritual seeking.
Well, yeah, then I did sort of get more into the sort of meditation, Buddhism, stayed at a few monasteries, and definitely was then came across, wouldn't even say I was seeking something called enlightenment, probably just seeking more the end of suffering in that sense, to be happier and to not suffer. But with that, a hell of a lot of neuroses and quite intense sort of suffering in that sense. And yeah, then came across the word non-duality and sort of went down more the sort of self-inquiry route.
And how long ago was that?
How long ago was that? This within the last 2 years, I'd say 2 or 3 years. And went on a couple of went to a couple of talks with some advaita teachers, sort of doing self-inquiry and things like that, and that felt like I was onto something in that sense. Like that felt more true than kind of religion or general spirituality. That felt quite right, until it didn't. So yeah, I mean, in a sense, I say it felt right. Like it felt better, I guess, but it still felt like an effort and something still didn't click, which inevitably is because I was still involved in that sense, looking for something. And then came across Tony's book, heard his name, probably for the first time within the last year and a half, really. I had no idea about this message at all. I read Tony's book, The Open Secret, and then I went to see Andreas in Brighton around this sort of time last year, actually. And actually, it was quite funny because I was listening to a lot of the sort of more traditional advaita, let's say at the time, that sort of focuses a lot on peace, love, happiness, those sorts of words, which obviously sound very attractive to the person. I went to Andreas's talk and found it quite, ironically, quite dead, quite bland, sort of devoid of the love, and just it felt quite cold. And I think that's quite common for the person to sort of hear this and feel that. But yeah, then there was an apparent awakening, let's say, before I'd seen Andreas. So I think this was sort of going to this message and didn't quite feel like it fitted. There was definitely still a lot of seeking and quite a avoidance of this message. But ultimately, you know, the apparent awakening sort of is the beginning of the end in that sense, you could say. So once you're sort of bitten, there's no going back. And then, yeah, quite a lot of pain for a while, trying to get that glimpse back or trying to recreate an awakening experience, which was incredibly stressful and, you know, tiring and yeah. And then just, I guess, quite a natural unfolding towards the end, and then just a complete collapse.
Thank you. A very, yeah, well told story.
Well, of course, none of that actually happened. So, yeah, that's the funny thing.
Also, it's similar to other stories. For example, Andreas himself, he would say, you know, he was also a seeker, having some, you know, some spiritual teacher and all of that, and he was trying to become a better person and whatever. And that getting him, you know, less and less inner struggles in a way, but he never expected that suddenly it just disappeared, all of it, or you know, I also cannot say what cannot be said, but you know
Exactly.
what, so it sounds like a very similar story, but for you very quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, in that sense, yes, but it probably didn't feel that way. But yeah, I mean, the person has no idea about this in that sense, so it can hear this and think it knows what apparent liberation is, or what an explosion into boundlessness might be like, but it can only ever imagine itself being there or it happening to itself, because that's all it knows. So I think I mean, to be honest, I don't even know what I was looking for in terms of this whole liberation thing. I think I probably just thought it was a permanent good feeling and no bad feelings and the end of unhappiness in that sense. But actually, when it got closer, you know, for want of a better word, there was actually more fear, in the sense of it was actually realized that it was about me actually dying, rather than the concept of the me dying. Okay, the me dies, fine, whatever. But actually, when it was realized that it was actually me that was gonna die, that was a bit weird in that sense. But then it quickly just, yeah, there's not much choice in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, well, interesting. Yeah, well, I don't really have any questions, but since I'm here and no one else is speaking, so least I got you talking a little bit about your story.
Yeah, it's lovely to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah. By the way, when I was younger, I also had hair like you. Now it's a little bit, falling down a little bit.
Oh.
I have one more question. Will you show us what is on this, the thing on the wall, the blue thing? I have only seen, I want to see the center. Aha, so it's not an Om in the center.
If I'm entirely honest, I don't know what it is. I think it's a mandala.
Yeah, it's Tibetan thing.
Yeah, maybe that was part of my hippie spiritual stage.
You see, my questions are not to the point, so I will leave it.
Lovely to meet you.
Hi, Izzy.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
On the topic of on the subject of choice, and I don't necessarily mean choice for a person, obviously, but is there such a thing as choice?
Apparently, apparent choices, of course.
But then that would be like for people, right? For a person or for an apparent me.
Not necessarily. No. There's choices appear. So, should I go for a walk, or should I watch TV, or should I have tea or coffee, or brown or blue? Like they're just totally normal, but there's just no person behind them, and there's no personal agenda for them. So they're not trying to get someone somewhere. There's nothing. There's no reason or purpose behind them. So it's not, I'll go for a walk because that's better than watching TV. No, there's just natural preferences for no one.
And at the same time, there isn't anyone making a decision, right?
Oh, absolutely not. And already no.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like brown or blue, but no one decides brown or blue.
Absolutely not.
It's just what apparently happens. Brown might happen for no reason.
Totally. Yeah. In a sense, you could say that's the freedom, but it's not the freedom that's experienced. Of course, for the person, it's brown or blue is, I mean, as a silly example, but it would have, one of them might have more meaning than the other, or in a sense, the decision is always being made with the future in mind. So which is going to be better for me in the long run, or and this a lot of the time might not be conscious. It wouldn't be, should I choose brown or blue paint because in the future, because I need to be liberated. Like, that's not going to be a conscious thought necessarily, but it appears to be more of this unconscious sense that I have to make the right decision, because if I don't, something bad's going to happen, or I'm not going to be fulfilled or happy. It's just this sort of dread, you could say, and this constant pressure.
And I mean, in that setup, there's times involved as well, right? It's like there's an imagined consequence to a claiming of brown or blue, right, for absolutely, a person. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So exactly that. Yeah. Well, what effect is this going to have on me in the future? What did I do before? What have I done in the past? It's this whole, it's every decision is made in this whole context of the bigger picture, so to speak, me and my life, and that all these little decisions need to be adding up to this one big final freedom. And if they're not pointing in the right direction, then I'm never going to get out. I'm never going to be happy or liberated. So yeah.
Or another mess up, another mistake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The victim sort of mindset. I've made all these mistakes in the past, I can't do it again. Yeah. And that's totally fine. That's just what's appearing to happen. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Of course, for the person, it might feel like there's something wrong with that, and that, you know, there's this place called liberation where decisions are just effortless and everything is easy and free and, you know, unicorns and rainbows. But anything can arise. Indecision can arise. Anger can arise. It's just totally normal.
Yeah, anything can happen.
Totally, yeah, totally.
And indecision can happen by itself. I mean,
it's already happening by itself. Yeah.
Indecision can happen by itself, and two sides of a so-called decision can play out by itself without anyone being involved in that.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is kind of
sorry, go on.
Fun to watch in a way, which is very surprising, you know, because it's like the me used to think that, or the apparent me used to think that it had to take a side, right? And actually there's no one there to take any side. And indecision is just unfolding all by itself, and with no one there taking any side at all, in fact, because there isn't anyone there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's no one watching anything play out. There's just playing out, if you like. And yeah, indecision may happen, it may happen less, it may happen more. You know, the person would probably think that indecision is bad because it's inefficient, or I should be clear, I should have clarity on my choices and my preferences. But that's just, you know, that's just entirely empty. There's nothing better about having clarity or, you know, strong decisions versus not being clear and being indecisive. It just doesn't matter, and it doesn't even happen. So
yeah, I mean, the value of clarity just collapses.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, clarity it's just not a thing for the person. The person that feels it's real then feels it has to be clear about one's life, about one's purpose, one's direction, goal, meaning, relationships. It wants clarity on everything. It wants to know. It desperately wants to know. It wants to keep a hold on everything, keep everything in check. But yeah, that just completely collapses, and to be revealed that obviously there never was clarity in the first place.
Yeah. Well, and especially for the seeker, for the spiritual seeker, clarity was such an important thing. You know, it's like, you know, if you're clear, then you're doing very well on your spiritual path. You know, I mean, even on this end, you know, in the early days of this message, it's like I had to be clear about this message, otherwise I wasn't getting it, you know. And you know, and then all of a sudden, wow, clarity really doesn't matter. In fact, there is no understanding it or even knowing any of this. And it's like, what? What? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a shock for the person in that sense, because the person seems to really feel it can think its way to liberation, or it can know or understand its way to liberation. I mean, it's gorgeous in that sense, because, you know, it just is what it is, but it just is impossible. So the person would like to think its way through this, or work it out like it's some formula of what Izzy's saying, or all these phrases of boundless energy and nothing being everything. But there is no clarity, and there's nothing that can capture what sitting on a chair, me and you chatting on Zoom is. Nothing can, there's no clarity around that. Nothing can say that or know that.
Yeah. Well, so I was listening to one of Tony's introductions the other day, and he started off by saying, well, you know, there's two realities, and the first reality, well, actually nothing can be said about it, full stop. And that's it. Nothing can be said about this reality, or understood, or known, or seen, or clear about, or yeah.
Yeah, well, there's not, I mean, there isn't even one reality. So of course the individual feels it has this, that it lives, the individual feels that reality is a thing because it feels itself is real. And so it thinks that Izzy then speaks about another reality that's separate from its reality. But actually there are no realities. There is no reality. So, I mean, in that sense, you could say that this, I mean, I wouldn't use the word reality, but this is just all there is. And yeah, as you say, of course, there's just no words.
No.
And this message can be turned into something, and you know, there's a lot of words that can be used, but they're totally meaningless.
And isn't it that the moment a word is spoken about this, it's just not that?
Well, it is this too. The words are, you could say they are and are not this. So speaking is what's appearing to happen. So there's not a separate this that this is pointing to in that sense. So I'm not talking about a separate this that is whole and complete and that is everything. No, it's this. It's me speaking to you on Zoom, or me speaking to you on Zoom is this. It's all there is. So yeah, there's no other this or other everything. This is everything. So yeah, everything's included. There's no right or wrong. The words are it, the speaking's it, the doubt is it, the person, the apparent person is it.
Apparently, right?
Of
Is
course.
it apparently? Apparently, yeah.
Well, they're not an actual it. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
There's just what appears to be happening. So nothing can confirm whether speaking on Zoom is actually happening. Nothing can say that it is, and nothing can say that it isn't.
Right.
It's just appearing.
It isn't. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Izzy.
And
Thank you.
lovely to chat.
Yeah. Izzy, could you share a little bit about how friendships look like today in your so-called life? You know, I don't want to use the word relationships, but friendships. How did they kind of look like, and have there been any apparent changes since, you know, the apparent liberation happening there?
Well, I guess when I was a seeker, I didn't have many friends, probably. Yeah, it probably wasn't that fun to be around in that sense. I was quite intense, I'd say, but I mean, yeah, there's everyone's a friend, no one's a friend in that sense, you could say. So there is no other. So I guess you could say there's no longer, whereas before there may have been like not a fear of strangers, not in that sense, but like a distance maybe, and sort of a safety with who I knew, like family and close friends or whatever. And this whole idea of getting to know someone, I mean, that just completely collapses, because there's no one to get to know in that sense, sort of to know their history, to know, you know, tell like your story. I mean, of course that happens, and that's just natural, that's just sort of normal conversation. But in the sense of sort of needing to get a gauge on someone, you know, judge their character before I reveal everything. I mean, yeah, that just collapses in that sense. So yeah, there's a everywhere is safe, nowhere's safe, you could say. So there's no sort of no other. And also in terms of relationships, well, there actually isn't a relationship. So I don't relate to anyone. There's no relating to another. There's just love, you could say, unconditional love. But it's not mine, it's not yours, it's not even, it's not owned by anyone, it doesn't know itself. It's just blindly itself. So yeah, there's just a gorgeous free love for everything, but not me loving everything, just everything as love, you could say. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that Izzy might be more open and a bit more easygoing with chatting to others, but it doesn't matter in that sense. So, but yeah.
And do likes and dislikes still apparently happen and come up?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, totally naturally. Same as before, if you like. Nothing changes. Literally nothing changes. So of course, if there may have been some choices that were made out of fear, you could say, or because there was a reason behind them, or trying to protect someone, or trying to come across in a certain way, or get somewhere, they may just relax and soften by themselves when it's just obvious that they're just there's no interest in them anymore. But yeah, sort of natural preferences, I guess you could say, for I don't know, shows to watch on TV, activities to do on the weekends, like it just very normal, totally the same. Yeah.
So even like the apparent me is playing out all by itself,
Of course, yeah.
which is like that's completely inaccessible to me. Like completely, like it's just like what you're like that's completely impossible to the experience, right?
How do you mean?
Like so like the experience of me, you'll never find out that it's happening all on its own. Like even like as an appearance, it's happening all on its own.
Well,
But
exactly.
you would say it's not even happening.
Exactly. Exactly. So in that sense, I mean, beyond impossible for it to find out because it just isn't happening, of course.
Yeah.
But the apparent illusion seems to happen all by itself, like everything else. Yeah.
So like double inaccessible.
Totally beyond. Yeah, exactly. Just, I mean, it just doesn't happen. So
Like you can't even like there's a lock, but there's no actual lock, so you're never gonna find the key to the lock because there's no lock. Yeah.
exactly, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So all attempts to find the key, to work out the key, to become a better me, they just collapse because there isn't one.
It's for something that doesn't exist, basically.
Exactly.
Very shaky ground, apparently.
Well, yeah, of
Thank you.
course. If this is really heard, you could say it can be very confronting because it can be very obvious all of a sudden that it's just never been there. So we're not talking
Yeah.
about anything collapsing or being seen through or there being a me that falls away. There just isn't one. And that can be quite confronting if it's suddenly seen.
So it's not like seeing that like it's happening and it's not real. It's like just seeing that it's not happening, which
Totally,
doesn't.
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So nothing is seen that is seen that, oh, I see the me now and I realize that's not happening. It's just not happening.
Yeah, that's where like when I'm trying to figure this out, that's where it goes normally. It's like, okay, I gotta see that like this me setup is not actually there's no one in it. Like that's where like I gotta find that out.
Of
But
course, yeah.
you're saying that's you there's it's not happening. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And the other way of saying that then is that there's just what appears to be happening. So there's no individual in that. There's just this, me and you chatting on Zoom. So there's no, the person tries to go in the loop of the me and find out that it's not happening, but that's totally impossible because there is no loop. There's just this.
Not accessible.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
No question more.
Hey.
Hi.
Okay, well, this is it. This is wholeness. Sitting on Zoom, talking, breathing, listening. This is whole and complete, exactly as it is. Nothing further has to be realized or even could be realized for this to become more whole and complete. Total perfection already for no one, including feeling that it's not perfect. So there's another Zoom on Wednesday, which will be the same link at 6 p.m. UK time. And then in April, the weekend of the 15th to the 16th, I'm doing an intensive, which will be 4 hours a day. 4 hours a day of chatting, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. So the links are all on the website. But I might see some of you on Wednesday. If not, take care. Lovely to see you all. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thanks.
Thank you.